Yes, a while ago we had some technical issues with sound coming from Costa Rica and also Colombia. So, and they're having storms in Costa Rica. This is Dave Emmons and the Strange Reality Show, and we have Mark and Rob here with us, and they will be talking to us about their book. We're talking about Rob Freeman, Mark McNabb, and they have this book that they just finished, and they want to talk about that. But they have a lot of pictures they want to show us, so we're going to go through the pictures. I know how you people like pictures, so we're going to do that. And I read off at the first part of the show their bio and everything, and their synopsis of their book, and then we'll be talking about the book off and on. But right now, we're going to have Mark that's going to show us some pictures. Mark McNabb, go ahead, buddy, take it over.
There we go. Everything for us, Dave, everything started at Area 51. Everything. I'm bringing you to the point that the book was Rob and I going to Area 51.
Okay, here goes our audio problems.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
Now I can hear everything that Mark is saying here. Dave, are you having problems listening?
I'm hearing both of these, and I'm seeing the picture.
Okay.
And
Okay, good.
I've seen this sign before too, but they kind of souped it up a little bit.
It looks like a few extra stickers on there.
There's some advertisements on there.
We came to the gate. We did it. We were tourists. We were. Hey, Rob, we were
Yeah,
tourists.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
So
seeing
that's the little alien. And Dave, you've been there to that little place.
twice. Yes, I didn't get drunk. I just had a drink or two.
You didn't have an alien cocktail?
No, I think I had one, but when I'm traveling like that, I don't usually party that much.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, that's just me looking at some of the interesting photos they had on the wall. They've got photos that go back years there on the wall, and very interesting place. And listening to the stories too, and people that come in there and frequent, coming from other states, coming from other countries, and around the world. Everybody's heard about this place, so it's kind of the place to go.
Mhm.
And there will always be somebody there that's telling stories.
Yeah. Now, does the same lady own that there, Rob? Does she still own that place?
Mark, maybe you could speak to that one.
Well, that's the thing is when we came in, they were very like no camera, don't take any video. But yet she still came over to the table and she started to tell us about how people have gone to the gate. There's two gates, right, Rob?
Right.
There's two
Mhm.
gates.
Mhm.
The gate that we went to, and then there's the gate where it's a more military style
Mhm.
kind of gate. And but we didn't experience anything. There's no experiences for us. But it's what started it. Everything that started for us started being at Area 51, you know?
When I was there in 2010, I saw orbs going up and down. I was standing there at Groom Lake Road on the highway and just watching things going on. I just saw orbs going up and down, and and it didn't look like regular aircraft. I mean, the flight patterns are straight up, straight down, white orb. I don't know if you guys saw any of that, Rob or Mark.
Yeah, we didn't see that, but we did see that one that I filmed that was coming across, and it had this strange flashing to it.
Mhm.
All I can, with my hands, I'm describing it like just like this, but it seemed to have this energy.
Yeah.
And I filmed it in the Zoom full spectrum camera, and you can see all this sort of energy or plasma energy or whatever. And once again, in talking with scientists and people that Dave Pelichuk from MUFON Canada had researched it with, they all said that this is reverse engineered craft and that they're landing. And before they land, they have to dump this energy off. And that's what it looks like when they dump this energy.
Mm.
So I just don't know if it's that it holds too much energy and it can't land, that something would happen and the energy has to be dumped. It's kind of like you might describe it as, when you take off in a regular airliner, they're full fuel. Okay, you're going down the runway and you can lift off, no problem. But if you've got a problem and the airplane has to come back and land, they cannot land with full fuel
Right.
because I think that it will do damage to the wheel gear and so on. You can take off, no problem, but you can't land with all that weight.
Mm.
So I've actually been in an aircraft where we had to call an emergency and we had to dump all our fuel. This was around Tampa Bay. We went for 20 minutes circling Tampa Bay, jettisoning all our fuel. And then so that when we did land, it was safe. But I don't know if there's something similar here involved where these crafts can take off with all this energy,
Well,
but
Rob,
when they go to land, they have to dump the energy first. Don't know.
Rob, the airplanes, I think, dump their fuel because they're afraid, I guess, if they have a hard landing, it might explode.
You
Maybe
know, I
that's,
don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I've heard now, I am actually a pilot, but I didn't study that part.
yeah.
I didn't, not a commercial pilot, it's private pilot, but it's just possible that there's a lot of weight and it's too much for the landing gear. It is very possible that, if a plane has to come in and land again, they don't want to risk all that fuel. That's possible also.
Yeah. So you're a pilot, a commercial pilot?
No, just private. I don't fly these days.
Mm.
I got my pilot's license and I was flying back and forth to work from London, Ontario to Hamilton when I had that telecommunications company, London Telecom. And then I found, Dave, that I was so involved with my business that, in Canada, you have to keep up with all the NOTAMs and all the paperwork every week, and they send it to you and you've got to put it in the binder. You got to read it all. I just didn't have the time.
Mhm.
And so I just stopped doing that. I thought I've got to be a safe pilot, you've got to keep up with all the updates
Right.
every week.
Yeah.
And then what stuff applies to you. And I was so busy with my company, I just didn't have the time to keep up with all that. So I let it go. But I did have my license. I was actually going through to get my helicopter license.
Mhm.
I got that. And, of course I flew hot air balloons. I did that years ago. One of the first guys I was the first guy in our area to fly hot air balloons. And I had a business for a year where I was giving rides. But, so quite interested in everything aviation. And of course, here we are, with the UFO stuff, just another form of aviation, right?
No, I admire people who fly. I don't think I'd want to fly. Never in my life did I want to fly. I do take planes every once in a while. I'll go back and forth to the Philippines or whatever. But I was just taking a guess on that dumping of the fuel, the explosion.
Don't
That was
know.
yes. You're a pilot, so I'm sorry. I didn't want
Yeah, that's okay.
to.
And I don't know the real answer. I'm just guessing that it's a lot of weight on the landing gear. It's okay to take off,
Mm.
but when you come down, if you come down hard, then that's a lot of weight on that. I don't know what the weight would be, but it would be tons of fuel.
Mhm.
That's, the weight that's adding to that aircraft. So just don't know.
Yeah, Mark, you were showing some pictures. You want to show some more and kind of narrate them and tell us just a little bit? You got so many pictures. I know people love pictures out there. So,
Here, Dave. I'm gonna bring up here. Okay, right there. I got those. I'm gonna go like that and like that. Okay. I'm gonna go share screen.
there you go.
Okay. This was kind of the second phase. We did everything that we did in Phoenix, and what we did was we did like a road trip. We went from we made the decision that we were going to go from Area 51 into Phoenix, and we talked to someone who was part of the Phoenix Lights, which is obviously very prolific.
Mhm.
And for us, for Rob and I, in the first month, it was about being educated. And, a lot of what we did was connecting with different groups, around the world that could give us an understanding of what they were experiencing. And of course, you're experiencing the right and the left. You don't know exactly what you're experiencing, but you understand that the people that you're with, they're very serious about what they do. They they see it in a very serious way. And like you say, like this picture in front of you right now, like these are individuals who have spent considerable time and considerable money to have these higher end telescopes, as you can see here, Rob and Hans, and this is in California. He's very serious about what he's doing. And Rob and I kind of figured, you look back at your whole time with them and you understand that they 95% of what they're seeing could probably be explained. It could be explained. It could be a balloon, it could be a bird, it could be a satellite, it could be a rocket body. But there's 5% that you can't explain. You just say, okay, well, you know what? There's all these check boxes and all these different things make sense in one way, but there's 5% that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Now this camera, this huge camera setup, what kind of pictures does it take, Mark?
Well, Hans, for example, in this picture, he was using a very high-end megapixel camera. Very high end, very high resolution. We I'll never forget the day because Rob and I walked into like a Best Buy, like a Best Buy,
Mm-hmm.
and we got like a P900 or a good camera, but they'd been doing it for years, and they had these high resolution, like this image that's on the screen right now. Like you would think that it's Venus. You would think that. You would think, oh, maybe that's Venus. Like maybe that's a star.
Mm-hmm.
But this is at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
It looks like a triangle in a way.
Yeah, this picture is at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I have footage of it fading away. Like it disappears. Well, how does a planet like Venus disappear?
Right.
That doesn't make sense. We've seen Venus. Like Rob and I can talk about Venus. We can talk about being in Joshua Tree. We can talk about all those different things. But how does something like this disappear?
Mm-hmm. That looked triangle. It looked like it had like, right angles to it or whatever.
Yeah. So, for the 95% that you can explain, there's always 5% you can't.
Yeah. And that's something for everybody to go by, that not everything that you see like an orb is not a UFO. If you see one close up, then you can more determine what it is. So I've seen 6 close-ups, so I know what they look like, and I know that, I knew they weren't just some blob of the camera or whatever I saw with my eyes. But no, a lot of people have to watch the satellite trajectory that goes across the sky, and there's computers now that you can just project what those satellites are doing. But do you have any other interesting UFO pictures, or UAPs, what they want to call them?
Here, Dave, I'm going to just bring open this.
Do you have the Cusco craft there, Mark?
I absolutely do.
Because there's an interesting story around that one, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is right there.
Oh, that is
so
amazing.
We were, I don't know, an hour or two from Cusco, Peru. We were in this mountain valley, and we were looking for a spot to skywatch, and we just didn't get a sense of any special spots. And then we saw this road that was kind of going off the main road, and maybe it was going to go up the mountain. And we were going up the road there, and we came to this little building, which was a museum, or like it was almost like a gallery of architectural things, like indigenous architectural things, a museum. And the guy was just closing. It was like 5 o'clock, and just right around 5. And we could see that the road continued on up the mountain, but the gate was closed. And so we went in and asked the guy and said, is it possible we could go up that road and skywatch? And he says, well, if you buy, because there was 3 of us, he said, if you pay for 3 entrances to the museum, here and let me give you the spiel. Then I will leave the gate open for you and you guys can go up. So we went in and he told us all the stories of the area and all the different artifacts that they had there in the museum. And then he closed up and he left the gate open and we went up there.
Mm-hmm.
We were sky watching with all the equipment. And I think, Mark, you may have seen a few things, but there wasn't really much. And there was a thunderstorm coming. And I put all the equipment away and we were kind of standing around. And I guess while I was still finishing up, Mark said, well, I'm going to just take my phone out and take pictures. Like we learned this in Australia, just taking shots of the sky and, you know, just go all the way around because sometimes stuff shows up in your photos. And then Mark was doing this and I was done with my stuff. And I thought, well, if he's going to spend some time doing that, I'm not just going to watch him. I will do the same thing. Maybe we'll capture something. So, you know, I did like 80 photos altogether all the way around into the blackness of the sky.
Yeah.
Like there's no lights there. We're up in the mountains. It's just there's some sheep and that running around, but that's it, you know. And then this thunderstorm was coming. So we thought we better just get out of here. You know, there's no trees and we got this metal car and we better just head down the mountain. So we headed back. The next day we were heading to Machu Picchu. And I think the following day we actually went around Machu Picchu and way up in the mountain looking down and all that. And we got back to the hotel early that night. And I thought, okay, now it's time I can look through all the photos. Like I'll look through these 80 photos that I took. And this was photo number 2.
Wow.
And I looked at it and I thought, what the heck is that? And I sent the picture to Mark and, you know, big question mark. And Mark and I get on the phone and it's like, what is that? All I can say is my camera caught it. Now, not the high-tech cameras, you know, $150,000 worth of cameras and a simple iPhone got the best picture of a UAP that we have right there in your screen. So, you know, a simple iPhone caught it. And the interesting thing is my flash did not go off. It disabled my flash somehow. And the other thing is the iPhone at that time for night shots used to do a 1/4 second exposure.
Yeah.
And see how sharp that is.
Yeah.
For a 1/4 second exposure and somebody that's, you know, moving a camera around and it's being held open for a 1/4 second, that should be really badly blurred. But look at how sharp it is, Dave. So,
yeah.
You know, at one of the conferences, I talked to Lou Elizondo and I asked him what this was. And he said, Rob, he said, that's not the craft itself. I said, what do you mean? He said, that is the energy imprint it left in the air as it went out of our dimension. Okay. In other words, you're not even seeing the whole imprint. Mark, can you zoom in on that a little bit? Can you zoom in on that?
That's the closest, Rob, right?
Okay.
There.
Like, look at how sharp that is. Now, Lou seemed to think that might be the engine area. But it's what's happened is the energy that it used to go between dimensions, it left our dimension, but it left that, I guess, all the molecules of our air excited with light.
Yeah.
Okay. And he described it. He says, Rob, you ever gone to the beach and you've got your lawn chairs and then you go to get up and you've got this imprint on your back of a grid pattern, right? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, that's what this is. This is the energy imprint that it left in the atmosphere for a split second. And it likely flashed so fast, Dave, we didn't see it with our own eyes, but the camera caught it. And because it flashed for like maybe 1/1000th of a second, even though the camera is moving and it's open for a 1/4 of a second, because it flashed so fast, that's why it's sharp and there's no blurriness of the camera moving. So
to make it out, it looks like it's got fins on it or whatever, and it's got a square block in the middle. And
it is.
That's the engine or the
maybe. Lou seemed to think it might be. You know, he's got to be very careful with his NDA, what he says. Everything he said that this was speculation, right? I mean, he may really have known, but he had to dumb it down for our conversation. But this is a legitimate UAP photo that I caught on my iPhone. And these guys have a sense of humor. Like I say, I've got all this equipment in the world, and it had all been put away. And on my simple iPhone, I caught this photo. Didn't even know it till 2 days later.
Do you think Louis Elizondo, you think he really knows a lot?
Yeah, of course he does. Yeah, but I've talked to him many times, and he's a good friend, and he has to think very carefully in any conversation that he has, because if he discloses anything that he's not supposed to because of his NDA, he can get into a lot of trouble. I mean, you're talking treason here. He cannot disclose national secrets or things that are under his NDA. He can speculate and try to get you to say the things, but he's got to be super careful. And he signed an NDA when he was working for the government. So what can he do? He is trying to push disclosure forward, but he does not want to put himself and his family at risk. Like, I mean, literally you could be put to death for disclosing secrets, national secrets, right?
Yeah.
You can't do that. So that's a legitimate UAP photo, but it's funny, because
depends on what party you belong to.
yeah. I have been kicked out of UFO groups because they think it was photoshopped.
Yeah.
And yet the stuff that they post nonstop in their groups is all garbage, and everybody gets all excited about. Yet when I post something that is 100% legitimate, I get booted out because they say it's fake. I can tell you, may God strike me dead if I'm lying. This photo was absolutely legitimate. There's earlier picture of the WMD.
Yeah.
In later months and years, I cleaned up all the wiring and stuff that was on it, but that's when we first would set it up and so on. It's evolved. You can see I'm even wearing a scope.
Yeah.
On the one there.
This is in master that. Wow.
Well, necessity is the mother of invention. When you miss some good shots and you say to yourself, gee, if I only had this camera or I had this camera, you learn very fast how to operate it in order to be able to capture the things that you want to capture. This is in Wales. We did capture an object in that thermal camera there in Wales. But yeah, we've been around the world, and I guess really we're up to 19 countries now, aren't we, Mark?
19. We're gonna three more.
Yeah, fantastic.
You're both saying that Central and South America have a lot of activity. Is that right, Rob and Mark?
Yeah.
South America. So it's a cultural thing, Dave. It's very, very cultural. It's like, to talk about all of this in North America, it's like a different conversation. But to talk in South America, to go to different beaches and different parts of South America, and to walk up to somebody and say, have you seen something? They talk about it very casually.
Right.
It's not really we have a big secret. It's not a secret. It's like they're painting, and they're looking over at you, and you're like, oh yeah, there's something came out of the water and came over the cliff, and it's not controversial. It's not a secret.
Right. Well, and Dave, it seems that everybody that we spoke with, every single person practically in their family has seen UAPs, UFOs. It's so common.
Yeah.
And it's not taboo there. It's like, if you haven't seen one, it's strange.
Yeah, exactly.
Now you guys were close to this latest thing out of Mexico, the little body that they found, and what's his name, the reporter that's really renowned in ufology,
Jaime Maussan.
He's putting all his money on it, saying it's real. Now, what do you guys know about that little thing, Rob and Mark?
Nothing.
Oh gosh, I haven't gotten too involved in that. We're kind of the guys that rather than getting caught up in all of the sort of gossip and all the craziness, we just go out in the field and try to experience for ourselves.
Right.
I've read a little bit about it, the pros and the cons, but I guess I would really want to hear what the real scientists have to say. I know he's hired scientists and stuff, but you almost want to hear from independent scientists,
Right.
and hear what they have to say.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
has been a group of scientists go down there, I think, and most of them are under the impression that the DNA that it's got, it's real and it's different. It's not human. So
Okay.
I don't know. That's the last I heard, but haven't heard anybody confirm that. So
Yeah.
it's still out there. That story's still out there.
Yeah, it could be very possible, Dave. We'd like to meet the real live ones,
Yeah,
not
really.
not the ones that are 1,000 years old, right?
That look like stone. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now you guys were taking pictures. This whales still?
This one, okay, that first one was in the Detroit River. Yeah, that one's the Detroit River. That's in the park that goes along the river in Windsor. And we would film over to Detroit, and we get some strange things in the sky for sure.
Mhm.
And that is Norway.
Yeah.
It's so cold, I've got the mask pulled right up to my face.
Mhm.
And that one. And Mark, what's the other one that you were showing there?
Oh, this is you and Sonia. This is
Yeah.
actually where it all started, right? This is exactly where it started.
Yeah, I'm just pointing up at where I actually saw that first one when I was 12 years old. And if the camera was pointing down further, you would see the river right there.
Let's see.
This is the St. Clair River right at the bottom of Lake Huron. And we're with a scientist here in Florida. Mark, do you remember this fellow's name? Ruggiero?
Dr. Rosario Santilli.
Right, right. Dr. Ruggiero Santilli. And we had his equipment. And, we bought a lot of different equipment over the years. I've tested it. And, what can I say? We've even bought digital color radar that we've had way out in the middle of nowhere in Australia. We've had some strange things happen with that. We come back to the room and, find lights all over my floor and stuff like this. The cool high strangeness factor just goes up exponentially when you get into studying or trying to follow this phenomena, as you probably know, Dave.
Yes, if your curiosity will actually lead them to you, they can read your vibrations and your frequencies, and so they know if you're interested or you're open minded or your consciousness is on fire.
I mean, the kind of things we've had happen, everything from duplicate checks, appearing and being still in the book when yet the check has been taken out and cashed. We've even had iPhones that the glass was cracked and then, tape put over to protect a person's ear so they don't cut their ear. And then they go to change the tape and the glass is not cracked.
Yeah.
I mean, with witnesses, there's witnesses before and after on all these things. And it's just bizarre. It's like truth is stranger than fiction. Absolutely 100%.
So these are the little paranormal things that occur around ETs or UFOs. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I have no idea why that is the case. I mean, we've experienced time displacement. We've experienced like parallel timelines right with the three of us, where
Yeah.
the one person will remember that this was the sequence of events that just happened. And Mark himself said, no, this is what I just experienced. And it was two parallel timelines overlaid. And, he got into a fight with it with this other person. And finally I said, wait a minute, maybe they're both right. And they were. They both experienced two separate timelines, but they're both in the same place that whole time. So, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like, we didn't even used to talk about this stuff because we felt people would think we're crazy. But honestly, Mark and I have each other as witnesses, and other people that are with us are witnesses. And this crazy stuff happens.
Right. And I guess you get documents from them signed or pictures drawn. So,
Yeah, well, we have the actual artifacts themselves, like the check or a copy of the check. So absolutely,
Oh, there's a picture
absolutely.
of
Yeah,
of South
that's
America. Not why were you in Norway and in a real cold, isolated place? What was going on there, Rob and Mark?
it's the Hessdalen Lights. And Erling Strand, Dr. Erling Strand has been studying that for years. And there's even a whole plaque on the highways you drive up where it talks about the Hessdalen Lights. And we've got tons of interviews with Mark. This is in Norway here. This is the group. The students will be involved for 2 weeks and they'll have 3 different camps on the mountains. And we got right involved with them. There I am, and I would have been in that tent and then coming out, setting up my equipment and staying all night long. And we did get some of the Hessdalen Lights on a video and stuff. And there's tons of video on YouTube, on the internet, of the Hessdalen Lights. It's a real phenomenon. It's one of many around the world. There's the Paulding Lights, the Marfa Lights, the Hessdalen Lights, the Brown Mountain Lights. It goes on and on and on. The Min Min Lights in Australia. And part of these may be natural. Part of it, there seems to be an ET connection to it as well, Dave.
Yeah.
For example, Mark interviewed Erling and several other people in Hessdalen, Norway there. And they told us some stories on camera. They told us even better stories off camera that they felt they didn't want to be published, including Erling. And in many cases, there was strange occurrences. There were crafts seen. There were beings seen. In Hessdalen, there's, just like in other places, there's like perfectly square pieces of earth, maybe 1 foot thick, taken out, perfectly cut. And, were they studying that? So there's, geographically, there is a perfect storm setup in Hessdalen, and they call it like a big battery. There's quartz in the mountain. There's geomagnetic anomalies. And, even at times of the Northern Lights, all of these things go together and can create these lights. But some people even feel that the ETs are coming to investigate the Hessdalen Lights themselves. And therefore, maybe they're doing research themselves and
No,
they're seen. They're
Maybe
seen in the area.
maybe it's another race.
it's very interesting too, Dave. Like there's the things that Rob and I experience, for ourselves, and then there's those experiences that people in, say, for example, Hesselen, they'll tell us about them. You'll say, "Oh, it's like a ball of light." Something went past the window, or something was like as big as a car. Like as big as a car went past my window. And then there's the moments where they say, "Can you turn the camera off? Can you turn your camera off?"
Mhm.
And I say, okay, no, hey, no problem. Respectfully, no, you don't want this on camera. You don't want to compromise yourself. That's fine. You don't want it. You don't. You're a professional, whether you're a student or you're a professional in the academic field or anything. I'm not going to name any names. No names. And then they say, listen, I have a story. I had something I need to tell you that happened to a friend of mine in Hessdalen on a mountain where he was walking, and suddenly this misty fog came in, surrounded him. And he's a good friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine. So I know he's not telling me any crap. He's not telling me something. He's not telling me a story. He has no agenda. He's not telling me this because it's going to end up in a book or a movie or anything. He's just telling me. We're sitting at the table, we're talking, and he's telling me this mist came in and he couldn't see. And he's walking and walking, and he doesn't know where he is because he can't see. He can't see anything. And then suddenly something comes out and grabs him from the back and holds him, doesn't let him move any forward, like any further. And the mist clears, and he's less than a half a foot from falling off a cliff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
his death, to his death. He knows that. He knows that he would have fallen to his death.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he understands that something, not, and he doesn't say it's a person. He just says something took me, held me, and made sure that I didn't walk two more steps. Because if I walked two more steps, I would have died.
Mhm.
I
So
would have fallen. I would have died.
did he mention guardian angel or anything like that?
Like it, you can call it anything, Dave. You can call it anything you want to call it. You call it guardian angel. You call it a guardian extraterrestrial. You can call it a force of nature. You can call it anything you want. But he says to Rob and I don't want this on camera. I'm telling you, I'm going to tell you both because you're here and I know you want to make contact. And maybe my friend had some kind of contact.
Mhm.
And you say, okay, we're going to take that information. We're going to be okay with that.
Yeah. Now, what is the bottom line on these echelon lights? What are they saying? This the academia or whatever?
Yeah, once again, it's like the whole area is a giant, pardon me, a giant battery. So there's electricity and
They're up.
Now you're frozen up a little
You're
bit,
frozen it, Rob.
Rob. We're talking about cold weather here, and you're frozen up.
It's true.
Okay, we can take it to another picture while Rob gets back together. That's not.
This is actually Cusco, Dave. This is when Rob was taking pictures in Cusco.
Mhm. You were up in the mountains there, right? Cusco is supposed to be
Yeah,
really a lot of people like going there, and that's a tourist
Peru,
stop.
Peru is amazing.
Oh,
Rob's gone completely.
yeah, he's probably going to check back in. You can continue with your pictures and your narration, and we'll wait for Rob to come back.
You
Yeah,
know, this is
people, we've
this
been
is
having technical problems this evening, and we have to stop and edit. And Mark is a great editor, so I'm going to let him take care of the raw footage on this video. What are we looking at now, Mark?
well, this is the time that we spent in Australia. This is a very interesting experience for us because Rob saw something through the thermal. He saw it. He did. He was like a cylinder shaped object, and Damien Knott, they call him the Australian UFO magnet.
Mm-hmm.
He saw it as well, and then we brought the footage home, and we wanted to see it. We were so excited. Rob was like unbelievably excited because he saw it through the viewfinder. He knew exactly what it was, and it was all white noise. It was like they came
Always
and they said, look at, you can see it, you can experience it. There can be multiple witnesses, as you can see in the picture,
right.
but we're not going to let you have it. You can't have it on camera. You can't keep it. This is not for you.
Mm.
Wow, Rob's gone.
He said they had a storm there in Costa Rica,
Yeah,
so maybe
yeah.
that's probably what's causing it. We'll wait for him to come back in. But this here is where Rob is shooting something. I guess is this still in Cusco?
This was in Australia.
Australia.
All of this was in Australia. And then we're back to the beginning. Let me see what else I have here, Dave. Let me see what I have here. One second here. Let me see what else I have here. We're gonna go here.
Like Rob is coming back.
Oh, here it comes.
We're talking about ETs, and I keep thinking that ETs are taking you guys.
It's true, right?
Yeah.
Here, let's get back into the main event here.
Yeah.
Here comes.
But no, the travels you guys have done and some of the things that are Are these pictures going to be in your book also? Rob,
Oh,
can you hear us, Rob?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
We thought the ETs got you.
Well, wasn't I just talking about how the ETs were coming to research all this stuff?
Right.
And of course, my connection was just lost.
Yeah.
I even tried to reopen the page. The Zoom would not even reopen. It was one anomaly after another. But anyway, here I am back again.
Well, that's the routine for my show. I think it
Yeah.
happens. The audio is played with quite a bit. So,
Yeah.
people can the people that are in the know can just about do anything, and you guys know that.
Yeah.
It's the technology that is there to do anything they want. Now, you guys got
That's
more
right.
pictures,
That's
or
right.
do you want to tell us about some of the most exciting things that happened to you? Either one of you, Rob or Mark?
Well, what story do we want to tell, Mark?
There's been
Well, I'm thinking about the book. I obviously think about the book and the different things that we had happen in the first couple of years. Yeah, I think of Cusco, but we've already talked about Cusco. What about Peru, Rob? We could talk about Peru.
Well, I guess, yeah, the beach at Playa Yaya. Maybe we'll talk about that. That's the craziest evening we had, probably bar none.
Mhm.
I would say.
Yeah. We had just been the day before, we had been with Sixto Paz Wells, and he invited us to his home. Mark was interviewing him in the backyard. I had the equipment set up here. And well, first of all, Mark said, why would you invite us to your home and, you don't know us? And Sixto had the sense that we needed to be able to tell the story and get it out.
Mhm.
And he seemed to, receive these messages and so on. And he said it's important. So we were very humbled by that. And we continued to interview him and so on. And he started telling us about the kind of strange things that can happen. I mean, we were new to this. We'd only been involved for what, a couple years, Mark,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he said,
No, we've lost
There he
you, Rob.
goes. ET's got him. Uh, so you want to finish up that story? There he is. He's back.
yeah,
He's
oh,
back.
you lost me there for a
Yeah,
second.
yeah, we lost you. You don't feel the time shift?
Oh, maybe it's a parallel time. Okay, where did I leave off? Where did you?
Well,
What was it?
it was just talking about Peru, and
Okay.
and what was it? The story that you were going to start talking about?
Okay. So I don't know where it cut. I mean, I could see you guys, but I guess you couldn't see me. And that's typical with the stuff that Sixto Paz Wells talks about. He said he's had experiences where he has been somewhere and he can see people out in the area where he is, but they don't see him, and vice versa. You can have like a one-way deal happening here with reality. You can have things like co-location, where he's had experiences where, maybe he's been at the mall, he'll bump into somebody and they'll say, well, I saw you downtown yesterday. And he'll say, well, I wasn't downtown yesterday.
Mhm.
Um, there's all kinds of strange things happen. It's almost as if whatever you can imagine can happen.
Yeah.
Okay. It's more stranger than the craziest Hollywood science fiction movie that you've ever seen. But on the beach at Playa Yaya, we had just interviewed him the day before, and we went to the beach at Playa Yaya. It's about an hour south of Peru. Very famous spot. And if you lose me while I'm talking, please say something because I can hear you talking the whole time.
Right.
Okay. Um, we went to the beach, and apparently there is an underwater ET base there. You know, we did see lights in the water and so on. We saw lights come off of a cliff as if something was thrown off a cliff,
Mhm.
and we filmed it. And yet, when we played it back and counted the frames, it was not accelerating, Dave. Now, how is that possible? You know, I learned in physics that gravity has an acceleration of what is it, 9.8 meters per squared,
Yeah.
meaning that every per second or something, meaning every second it's going to go 9 meters faster. And yet this object was constant velocity all the way down from when it was thrown off by who knows who, because we went to that cliff the next night, and where it was thrown off from, you can't even reach. Okay, so that was just one of the things. That was really nothing. The big thing was when we were leaving, just before we left, we had looked over to the car where we parked on the beach there, and there was a car with lights right behind our car. We got nervous. So we didn't do anything. We tried not to draw attention to ourselves. And I continued filming and stuff. But the strangest thing was, when we looked back over, nobody saw the car leave. All of a sudden, the car was, 200 meters away in another location. That was one of the things that happened. What happened early into the night was, as it was getting dark, on that equipment there, the one camera is a day camera, and I had to change it to the night vision camera. So I undid the screw, and they're 1/4-inch screws, especially for camera equipment. I had it in my left hand, and I put it in my pocket. My pocket was deep with no holes in it. And I said to myself, I do not want to lose this screw. Yeah. The second I said that, I no longer felt the screw in my hand, but I didn't feel it disappear. And I said to Mark, the screw has suddenly disappeared. And he said, don't move. And, I took my hand out very carefully, opened it. There was nothing there. And this was the coat pocket, and the pockets were like this. And he said, okay, I'm going to carefully put my hand into your coat pocket and check. He felt the end of the pocket. There were no holes in the pocket. So the screw disappeared, and we called it a pocket portal. And, 3 years ago at my house, that same screw reappeared on top of a box. Okay. So you get these apports happening.
Yeah.
Okay. That was one of about 7 things that we had happen that night. We had, I guess, when finally that other car was over, a few hundred meters away from us, we decided it was time to go. I promptly got the car stuck in the sand, and we had to call a tow truck. And to make a long story short, we're waiting for the tow truck to arrive. And we saw these lights on the highway, 200 or 300 meters away, parallel to the beach. And the guy was shining the spotlight all around looking for us. Now, we thought, okay, he can't see us. We started the car. We turned the lights on. We're flashing the lights on and off. I went in front of the car. I'm doing jumping jacks just to create some motion so the guy could see us. Mark was inside flashing the lights, turning them on, turning them off, blowing the horn. The guy just kept shining the lights as if we weren't even there, Dave. Wow. And then he kept driving down, way down the beach and out of sight. And so we called the car rental company, because it was them who we called to get the tow truck to come, because it's part of our rental package, have towing services there in Lima. And we said, our tow truck guy appears to be lost. And she said, well, let me just call him. Can you describe where you are? I said, we're right across from the power plant. There was a power plant on the opposite side of the road, away from the beach. She comes back on the line and she says, that wasn't your tow truck. Your tow truck driver is still half an hour away. So, what was that all about? But during that time, also in that same time period, before that tow truck came, we saw police going down the highway with their lights flashing. And we understood that to be, when they're patrolling, they will always have their lights flashing. Okay. Well, this police car did a right angle and came down the road right down to where we were, and turned the corner and went on the gravel road right parallel to the beach, right where we were. Again, we're flashing the lights at him. We're waving at him. We're honking the horn. Mark's got it all on film. And the guy was driving his car just looking straight as if we're not even there. Okay. How could he miss us? And we were laughing. We said, well, what do you have to do to get a policeman's attention? Do you have to kill somebody? You know, like it was very obvious we were there. It was very obvious that we were in trouble, that we were stuck, and the policeman didn't even see us. He was within 15 feet of us, Dave.
And he didn't. Wow. Now,
Didn't see us.
what do you attribute that to? What kind of paranormal?
It's some kind of a timeline where it's like a one-way timeline.
Mhm.
In his timeline, which we are overlapping with, he does not see us. In our timeline, we see him. Okay. But we cannot interact with him. We think we're interacting with him, but he does not see us. Okay. So we had that. And then after that, that tow truck finally left, and we, called the rental company. Finally, when the tow truck driver did come and he started shining the light on the beach, the second Mark started flashing the lights in the car, he acknowledged by shining the light right at us and came directly to us. So what was with that first driver? He didn't see us. It was impossible that he could not see us. But in his timeline, he didn't see us, Dave.
So you think he was the one in a different timeline, and you guys were in the Zek timeline that you thought you're supposed to be in, right?
All I know is the timeline that first tow truck driver was in, we could see him, but he couldn't see us. Now, when the driver came again, the real driver, he acknowledged us instantly. He was moving his light around to find us on the beach. The second that Mark flashed the lights, he acknowledged and came directly over. And then that was the end of the anomalies. We had at least 7 crazy things that happened, split timelines, where Mark and our other person, like I was mentioning earlier, they had 2 different things happen in the same timeline. Like the one person said to Mark, this is what you did. This is what you just did, like over the last few minutes. And Mark says, no, I did this. And she said, no, you did this. So they both had 2 different stories.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason I know, I was in the car doing a little meditation. And when I came out of the car to start sky watching, these 2 were arguing. And because they each had a very different version of what had just happened for the last 3 minutes.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's when I stepped in and said, well, maybe you guys are both right. And they were.
Maybe
in the one,
maybe Peru is loaded with all these energy spots, and
it is.
It reminds me of Sedona, but Sedona in a smaller way in what you're talking about. That happened to me in Sedona. You see dimensional objects or people, and nobody else sees them. Okay,
and we've lost Mark again. It's the internet. It's
yeah.
Oh, and I've lost you, Dave, too. No, you're still there.
Yeah,
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see and hear you. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe Mark's going to rejoin us again.
Right. It's something is messing.
It's just one anomaly after another.
No, it's just right? Weird. Just the trouble we're having is almost the show in itself.
Yeah, no kidding.
But
no kidding.
But in Peru, as you can, I guess we'll continue while Mark is finding his way back. Now, in Peru, were there other stories you said there about 7 or 8 different things that really happened to you there?
That was on that night in Playa Yaya. Playa Yaya is a beach. Playa means beach.
Yeah.
And it was Playa Yaya. We were there for several hours, and there was no less than 7 different crazy things that happened.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you have other people with you, like guides, and they would tell you?
Not on that particular night, but Sixto Paz Wells had told us the day before the kinds of things that happen at that beach.
Mm-hmm.
Like campers have been at the beach and witnessed like an old style Volkswagen Beetle Bug drive out of the water and drive up to them, and it's Nordic looking beings asking for directions. Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Crazy.
And we've interviewed other people, and there's all kinds of stories of things that have happened right at that beach, where apparently out in the water is a ET base.
Right. Now that beetle bug car, it may have not been a car. They just probably said it was about the size of a beetle, right? I mean,
Well, maybe they made it look like a Volkswagen Beetle, right?
mm, right. Yeah, that's yep, there you go. They this technology they have is so far advanced. It's kind of like magic to us. But
Yeah,
you know, it's like throughout history when people did little things that we know of now we can understand, but they were doing things back in the 1900s that people thought was magic, and then we're seeing things now that's so far advanced from these ETs. We think it's magic, but it's really not. They're in
that's
control
right.
of doing something
That's right.
technology.
The technology, they can manipulate the technology somehow, Dave.
Yeah. Now, did you get close to the Nazca lines or whatever?
Yep. Yep. We spent time there. We've, videoed some interesting things in the sky there. We had a guide with us that told us all about the Nazca lines and the energies and so on, for sure.
Yeah. Now, your book takes us through all these adventures, like Peru bound, and then duplicate check incidents, Grant Cameron, top Apport. All right, Apport. Am I saying that right? Now,
Report, yeah.
yeah, I've talked to Grant before, and we've had a couple of shows together, and he's taken, I've sent him some pictures of my Apports, and he thought those were very interesting. And it's little things that disappear and then come back to you, but these are things that come to me that I never seen before.
Yeah.
You're talking about little plastic discs that I got four of them in a row, and they followed me around from Illinois to Alaska. So I got two in Alaska and two in Illinois. So they follow you around. They know exactly where you're at, the frequencies. So now afterwards about Grant Cameron, what'd you do on that one, Rob? What's that story about?
The one with Grant Cameron,
Yeah,
the one with the ports.
yeah.
Well, that's the duplicate check. That's the duplicate check. And we have had the port, I guess, with that little camera screw
Mhm.
appearing just 3 years ago. It disappeared in 2017. And then in about 2021, it reappeared in my house, the camera screw. I mean, that's not a big one, but it's just one of many,
Yeah.
Dave.
Yes, a lot of
And
things that happen, paranormal things around ET, I guess energies or whatever they come in.
yeah,
Have you or Mark, have either one of you seen an ET at a distance or close up?
yeah, we've got that story in Australia to tell. I don't know. I think we've told that one before or not.
Yeah, you have, and that's the one that excites me. You can
Okay.
tell it to the audience. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll tell it briefly. We were on an expedition in Australia, and there was four of us, and Mark and his partner at the time. We were out not far from Uluru, from Ayers Rock, that big monolith rock that's in the middle of Australia. And it looks like Mark's coming back in. Let's give him a minute here.
So
I can,
the ETs are allowing him to come back.
yeah, I can start the story again. Yeah,
He's coming back.
he's coming back.
Where are you, Mark? Yeah,
Are you there?
yeah. This has been a show in itself, people.
Well, I know, and
Rob
it's
and
kind
Mark. Yeah,
and it's kind of like what's the most used expression on a cell phone?
yeah.
Are you there? Are you there?
And that's AT&T, and they're having trouble today, from what I understand. Looks like Mark
Yeah.
can come back in.
Uh, okay, so I'll continue with the story. So that particular night, Lauren Kurth is from Australia. She was with us, guiding us around Australia. That particular night, Mark and his partner, they had been out during the day getting a lot of B-roll with the cameras for the documentaries. And let me just quickly see what he's having a lot of, he's saying for us just to continue.
Okay.
Okay. So Mark and his partner had been out filming B-roll all day, and it was quite hot. They were tired. They didn't want to go sky watching that night. That was the night I decided that I was going to stay up all night, and Lauren as well, and we would set up the equipment in the middle of nowhere, like half an hour away from this resort, which is in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Australia.
Mhm.
And there's just nothing there. I mean, We drove down the road 30 minutes and it's all just like a desert. There's like little bushes and stones and that, but it all looks the same, Dave. And we thought, where will we park? And we just drove off the road literally and parked the car behind some bushes, like maybe 40 or 50 meters off the road. And, we didn't want to be seen from the highway. I've got all this equipment and we're going to be there all night. We didn't want to draw any attention to ourselves. So I think it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. We saw over on the highway a car lights, and there'd only been like 3 cars all night long so far, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the light slowed down, and that got us concerned, like, what's going on? And all of a sudden, the light turns in off the road and starts coming right to where we are. And it's like, what the heck? Like, here we are. It's hundreds of miles to the north, to the coast, if not like 800 miles or 900 miles. Same to the south, same to the east, same to the west. There's hundreds of miles or thousands of miles of outback. It's all the same. How is it that this car is coming on the highway right to where we are? It's like somehow we were a beacon.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought that was really odd. And then he comes within 30 feet of us, parks his car, and we saw the dome lights going on and off on the inside. He was fiddling with something. And I said to Lauren, I'm going to go talk to this guy. And she said, don't you dare. And I said, why not? He said, well, maybe he's got a knife or something. And I said, well, I've got my laser. He's going to get it in the eyes if he's got a knife. And then she said, well, what if he's got a gun? I said, well, he can have all my equipment if he's got a gun. I don't care. It's all insured.
You were ready for it, huh?
So I said, well, I'm going to talk to him. I wasn't scared. Lauren was really nervous. I wasn't scared. So I went over and talked to him, got out of the car, and Lauren said, well, I'm coming with you. She came over. We started talking to this guy. This guy was your classic Nordic looking person. What they talk about, ETs can be Nordic looking, right? And right from that moment on, there was nothing that made sense about what happened, because he was saying that he had just come from the north working in a mine all day and had just driven like 15 hours right to the spot where we are. And if he'd been in a mine, how come his clothes look freshly pressed and brand new? And where's his 5 o'clock shadow? Okay. There was none of that. And he said that he was going to drive another 15 hours to go home for the weekend. And it's like, who drives 30 hours to go home for the weekend?
Yeah.
Nobody. So, and nothing made sense about the whole interaction. Even the way he talked there was only a slight amount of emotion, and even it seemed fake. Like it seemed rehearsed. Okay. It didn't seem real. Almost like, now some people have said, well, maybe he was Asperger or autistic or something like that. It's possible. It was very much like that.
What did his clothes look like? They were freshly ironed and clean, but what type of clothes did he wear?
I can't remember now. Lauren would remember those things, but it would be a shirt and there's pants and so on, but it was freshly pressed. And I'm thinking, how is a guy who's traveled 15 hours in his car, how is the shirt not wrinkled? From your sweat sitting in against the seat and so on. There wasn't any of that. So everything seemed odd. And then I was starting to suspect that maybe this guy was an ET. Okay. And so I started asking questions about things Australian. He didn't know the answers to any of these things. And I thought, how is it that I'm a tourist here? I've been here for a couple of weeks. I know more about your country than you do. Now, I guess that can be the case when you're a tourist in somebody else's country, but it was simple things that I was asking him and he didn't have the answers to. I was trying to determine who this guy was. And I said, why did you come right to where we are? And he said, I just came to Skywatch. And then it was so weird, Dave, because he seemed to be reading our minds. And I knew Lauren was scared. And then all of a sudden he said, if you'd rather I go somewhere else to Skywatch, I could do that. And then Lauren said that would be very kind of you. And then he left. And I'm thinking, why did you just send this guy away? He might be an ET. And I said to Lauren just that. And she said, why would you say that? And I said, but just think of all the things that just happened. None of it makes sense. None of it makes sense at all.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, I guess you're right. And we shouldn't have sent him away. It's like, we, you know, you,
Yeah.
but
Knowing
I,
you, you're curious enough to find out more. You know, like me. Yeah.
yeah. And I wanted him to stay skywatching with us.
Yeah.
And I would have probed and we would have talked and, you know, so on and so forth. So anyway, that was that. And we continued skywatching for the rest of the night until it got light. And we packed up the equipment and we headed back to the hotel resort, 30 minutes away. And as we were waiting to turn down to the road where the resort is off the highway, there was a vehicle coming. So I had to wait for the vehicle to pass. And I wasn't paying attention to the vehicle. I want to turn, you know, I just got to wait for the vehicle to turn or go by and I'll turn. As the vehicle went by, Lauren says to me, Rob, did you see who's in the vehicle? And I said, no, I'm turning. My attention is just this vehicle's got to go by and I'm going to turn. I'm not looking at the driver himself. Lauren did. And she said, that's our guy from last night. And I was just turning when she said that. So I kept turning and did a 180. So literally 3 seconds later, I'm now going back down the road to where we were. There's no car, Dave. The car disappeared. What was that all about? So there was no car. And I said, Lauren, where'd the car go? And she said, I don't know. It just went by. She said, you were waiting for him to go by. I said, yes, I did. I was, but there's no car. Where is it? There were no other roads. And the road didn't go across the highway. The road came off the highway down to the hotel. It was kind of like a lower area down there. So nevertheless, we hightailed it at a high rate of speed and we were back to our place where we were skywatching in 15 minutes versus 30 minutes, you know, at a normal speed. And nobody, you know, we never passed a car. We didn't see him. So we looked around where we were and nothing. So we headed back to the resort. So this is two things. One, all the crazy stuff when we were with him. Two, you know, that happened when we were trying to go down to the resort.
Mm-hmm.
And three, several months later, I'm in this Facebook group. It's nothing to do with ETs. It's around the Seeing Blindfolded, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this guy had contacted me from Serbia and wanted to learn more about that. Okay. He had no idea that I was involved with UFOs. No idea at all. And we had there was a friend, Wendy Gallant and myself on his three-way video call. And about a minute into the call, he said, Rob, and I'm just going to pause for a second. I'll just say, okay. Yeah, I'm just acknowledging Mark there.
Okay.
So I'll just rewind this for a second. So just a minute into the call, he stopped for a second. He said, Rob, I'm getting a psychic flash. And I said to him, what do you mean a psychic flash? He says, well, you know, I read tarot cards and I'm very sensitive to all these things. He says, I'm getting like a vision and it includes you. Do you mind if I tell you? I said, no, go ahead. And he said to me, and once again, I'm going to close the door because all the bugs are coming in here. 1 second, Dave.
Okay.
I hope it's not too echoey now.
No, it's
I'll just open the window here.
looks like you got an invisible hand there doing that. With the magic, it's magic.
Yeah. So, you know, he said to me, do you mind if I tell you what I'm receiving? And I said, no, go for it. He said, it includes you. He says, I see that you're in Australia. I see that there's three of you. One's a woman. He said, and one of these people is an ET.
Mm.
Now, I had never met this guy before. I didn't know him 2 minutes before that. He had no idea that I was involved in UFO stuff and documentaries at all. And so this was proof number three, Dave. And that's the end of the story.
Yeah. I've had things like that happen, like time slips and time move ups. So you get somewhere faster than what you really planned. Hi, Mark.
There's
I'm back.
Mark back.
Yeah. You have a nice visit with the ETs.
Oh man, I'm so sorry, guys.
I said, no, no,
Yeah.
no. We've been. I'm having glitches on my screen now, and those
Okay.
glitches. Some people have told me that they're not. They aren't right. They're going the wrong way. But
Yeah.
so, yeah, we're getting probably messed with. Maybe let's blame it on AT&T. They're having trouble.
Perfect,
So
perfect.
Yeah,
we'll blame it on AT&T versus ET&T.
yeah, right.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, so it's a the thing you're talking about this the Nordic race. Billy Meyer, you know the story about him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had a lady on, Britt Elders, who knows, uh, who knows him and did a book about him, wrote a book about him. And she said he's for real. And he said that the ones that he saw were Nordics and they were human.
Mhm.
They were human just like us.
Well, that's the guy. So yeah.
Yeah. And you know what a lot of scientists are saying now? I heard some prominent scientists, forget their name, but I listen to a lot of this stuff. They say that most of the extraterrestrials are human and they look like us, the majority of them.
Yeah. In fact, our, ex-defense minister, Paul Hellyer, may God rest his soul. He's passed away now, but he was our defense minister here in Canada. And he got, after he left office, he got quite involved with ETs because, he was party to all of the information when he was defense minister.
Right.
You have access to the top secret information of your country. And, when they had the Cold War and stuff, and he told us a couple stories. He said, well, at one point, Europe and Russia both saw fleets of objects in the radar moving across. And he said we were seconds away from World War III because Europe was ready to press the button to send nukes into Russia.
Mhm.
Russia was ready to press the button to shoot nukes into Europe over this apparent invasion. Okay. And then they realized both of them were seeing it, and it was UAPs, it was UFOs. And so he was party to that information. He did share that with us, but he also told us, he said, in the Milky Way galaxy, all the ET races look very similar. He said, if you saw one walking down the street, you could think it was your cousin or your uncle.
Right.
He said, we're all from the same seed in the Milky Way. He said, as soon as you go away from the Milky Way into other galaxies, that's a different story. That's where you get all these other kinds of beings that look quite different. But, all the beings in the Milky Way, including our ET friends, all look very similar.
I was wondering about that because they do walk amongst us, and of course, Dr. David Jacobs wrote that very famous book that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've met a few strange people. They have strange energy, and you can pick up on it if you've been ETanized or whatever you call it. And so you've been close to ETs or whatever. You get this energy about you, this frequency that you can pick up other strange frequencies, and you guys by now are picking that up because you've been around these energy spots and around strange people, and I was just going to tell Mark before he walked off there what you was telling about the story about Australia. Now, are there other people that you've met that very strange, like in Peru? Were there people there that talked about seeing all kinds of things themselves? Mark?
Well, before we get into that, when you talk about ETs walking among us,
Mhm.
what comes to mind is that guy in Italy, Mark. Do you remember? Now your sound is turned off. Can you turn your microphone on? There we go. We met a guy in Italy that Mark and I swear he's an ET. And maybe Mark, do you want to share a little bit of information around that?
So that's actually in Italy that we saw that.
Or no, was that Italy or was that yeah, that was Italy. That was the reporter. Remember, he came to
Oh,
our house for dinner and you were
yeah.
watching him and he is some of the strange things that he did and mannerisms.
I
And
was going to say the word is mannerisms because he was very amused. He became very amused with like different things. And you're like, why are you so amused by that? Like he was very fixated, fixated on different mannerisms and people and animals. I think it was a dog or something. He was just so like fixated on the fact that this dog was, acting in a certain kind of way. And I'm just like, that it was a very, very interesting experience. And remember how hot it was? It was so hot. And he wore this three-piece suit, and it was all very, yeah, he was locked in.
well,
He was-
Dave, we've heard stories that, ETs that are among us. Um, one second. I'm sorry, I'm doing the interview. Sorry. Yeah. Um, so we've heard stories, many stories where when they talk about ETs among us,
Mhm.
that they seem to read the book on what it's like to be a human,
Yeah.
but they don't get all the chapters understood
Mhm.
because it is said in many cases they'll show up at a picnic with a three-piece suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do we have happen? Is this guy, it was super hot. Everybody else was in t-shirts and jeans or shorts. And this guy came to our little, we had like a brunch where we had invited the group from the TV station to come. And he was the reporter and he came in a three-piece suit.
Mhm.
And it's like totally out of place. Like all the other people with the station were just casually dressed. Like for the event, it was just very informal. We invited them to our house. And for the type of weather that we were having, it was super hot and super humid, Dave. So why would anybody come wearing a three-piece suit? So that's our experience that we had with a second person that may have been an ET. We don't know for sure, but Mark and I both picked it up and we kind of, we went aside and we talked about it and we said, there's something very strange here.
Yeah.
So, and you say you've had experiences
Oh,
like
yeah.
that as well?
Yes, I've met a couple of them, and they elicit emotions from you because that's the last thing they can understand about humans. They don't have the same emotions we have. So
Okay.
they elicit those emotions. I think Daryl Sims talks about that. Dr. Jacobs talks about it. Bernie Mac, they talk about that. That they that when they do when they're here is trying to mix in with us, they they try to learn our emotions because that's the toughest thing for them to learn besides other characteristics like clothing and that type of thing. And you can actually tell by their face and their eyes that there's a strange energy about them, and
Yeah.
they're just not. You can just tell they're not just real. And I ran into a really beautiful young lady one night that I was getting a band contract. I was single at the time, but getting a band contract, and this girl played a tune from Michael Jackson on the jukebox, and she was dancing, swirling around in a black dress. She was with a couple other young ladies in their 20s, and she come up to me, and I was wondering why did she come up to me? Why two brothers were younger and better looking than me at the time. So I thought, oh, I'm not going for this. That's too young for me. But she tried to get my attention. But a week later, like the story shorter, a week or so later, we were sitting there, my brother and I were sitting there. She was there, and she was on a stool, and and then I asked my brother, is that the same one? He said, yeah. She turned around and looked at me, but she didn't turn all the way. She just turned a little bit of the way. I saw the green slits in her eyes.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, she was a reptilian shapeshifter. And they can
Wow.
shapeshift into anything they want. And they're very talented. They could learn our music, our dance really well. And you were talking about driving with a blindfold on. Uh, uh, I guess Shirley, uh, I just mentioned her name a while ago, Shirley Reynolds. I guess is that her name? Shirley Reynolds.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but she did that. She's a movie star, and she's
Okay.
still a movie star, 90 years old.
Okay.
but she did that. I think it was in
Okay.
Peru when she went down there. She,
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
and
Yeah,
drove,
possibly.
yeah, and
And I'm thinking, just going back to the last story, I'm thinking when you say about learning our emotions, what do you mean learning our emotions, Dave? Because it's not something that we learn. It's something that we have innately, that we just have.
right.
And, like if somebody's going to harm you, you get upset, you get angry. That's not something you've learned. You just do as a defense. Or if you see something funny, you laugh. I mean, I've got a little grandson that's about 7 or 8 months old,
Yeah,
and you can get him to smile.
yeah,
So
and
he's not
laugh. Yeah,
learning to do that. He's born with it.
right.
So all these emotions we're born with, we don't learn them.
Right, but that's why they have to learn them because they don't have those emotions.
Ah, okay.
They're just drab, maybe robotic like in nature. But I heard that the tall Nordics are a little bit sharper than that. They know they actually were involved in our DNA manipulation at some time
Okay.
past thousands of years, and this is what Billy Meyer says.
Ah,
A lot of people don't believe his story, but I believe quite a bit of it because he talks about, and then there was a video of a woman that was in his house. She didn't turn her head around or her face, and they said that she was a Nordic ET that was in her house, and she was dressed like a typical human lady would be dressed,
mm-hmm.
and so, but she didn't show her face on the camera, so
Ah,
so I believe him that he's made some contact, and these people will come up to you, the tall blondes or whatever. And I think the little grays, I don't know if you've had an opinion about them. The little
no.
grays are like robotic. They're biomechanical, and
Ah,
they're worker bees
okay.
for the Nordics.
Okay.
I said Nordics. Now that's another type of person, yeah. But
Yeah.
no, they're little worker bees for the tall whites, and
Mhm.
I think they must be selling them or something because most of these aliens have these little grays working for them, and even the reptilians I heard have them working with them. So do they buy them at some kind of a galaxy Walmart or something?
I don't know. And this is another thing when you talk about Galaxy Walmart. I mean, some people have theories that, you know, we are the Earth is a stop on a galaxy highway, intergalactic highway, that it's very possible in the same way, if I was driving from Toronto to New York City, I would not put all my fuel in the vehicle that I need to get all the way to New York City. I would fill it up as much as I can. And when I run out of gas, in a city 1/3 of the way, I'll fill it up again, and then I'll fill it up again. And some people are theorizing that it's possible, especially, they talk about this around the Heslin Lights, that maybe there's energies that they are taking from the earth to continue on their journey wherever they're going. It's possible, don't know.
Mhm.
I mean, when we were in Australia, there's stories like this one lake where many people saw a craft actually come above the lake and a straw type of mechanism come from the craft and start sucking up water.
Mhm.
Now, you know, we drink the water here, but water is H2O, hydrogen and oxygen. And if you can separate it, then you can have a fuel of hydrogen, which burns oxygen and becomes water. Is it possible that, we use gasoline for fuel here, but they can use water as fuel?
Yeah,
Is that possible?
hydrogen. Yeah, hydrogen.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I also
So,
heard that they use some of our electricity. They can be charged by electricity, and that's where the plasma energy comes from.
uh,
They can take a lot of our electricity from the wires or cables, and of course it dims the lights or whatever, or it knocks out the power sometimes. But they claim that that's what they also do. They take electrical charges and use it as a plasma. I know a Dr. Robert Shipe who's been on my show, and he's got these videos of these little dragons, he calls them. They're about an inch or two long, and they look like a brass bullet. And
mhm,
at 1,200 miles an hour, you can't even see them. They're like ET drones.
mhm.
They survive off of plasma. He's actually got a picture of one of them drawing plasma from a power line, and you can see the white flash going up to it. It draws the energy and it takes off, and that's what it uses. So there's plasma, there's hydrogen. I don't think they use nuclear. I think it's if it's anything, it's got to be some other kind of a power source that they've talked about, like element 115, that Bob Lazar talked about, that they use an element that gives them that power energy or whatever to I guess power up their ships. But
Yeah, and it's possible, Dave, too, that they consider nuclear energy too dangerous.
right, well, that's why
And
yeah, yeah, they're checking us out all the time at the nuclear weapons bases. Tell us a little bit about the book, and I guess we'll kind of draw to a close. We've been in and out of this has been an unusual show, but tell us a little bit about the book before we sign off, and the title,
yes,
and where they can
yes.
find it, and where they can find information on you.
Yep. So you can find the book on Amazon.com. And it's, the man who wanted to make contact. And it's really our first 2 years. It's really, Mark talks about how we got to this position, like me, wanting to look for ETs and so on and UFOs. And it really just chronicles our first 2 years and, going out to Nevada, going out to California, just meeting a lot of famous people also, a lot of people who've, Phoenix Lights, like Jeff Willis there, who's documented the Phoenix Lights in Phoenix. We met him,
Right.
and just, going to Australia, going to different places. So it's the places that we went to and the people we met in the first 2 years. And Mark is also writing at least two more books and maybe even a third one to bring us right up to date.
Right.
So they're all in order. And it's really just a journal of all the things, our experiences along the way. And the cool thing is about Mark and I is, well, for example, if somebody sees something and experiences it and then tells a story, you know, especially if you tell you're a friend, they might acknowledge it, but do they really believe you?
Right.
When it's you that's telling the story, just as one person. But when you have another witness, like Mark and I are experiencing this stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
So we always have a secondary witness, if not more. So then when you're telling these stories, Mark can back up exactly what I'm talking about. I can back him up. We know ourselves we're not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like having another person with you when you experience this stuff keeps your feet on the ground.
Right.
And then then you don't need to question your own reality. You don't need to question your sanity, because all you got to do is talk to your co-witness and say, did we really experience it? That? Well, yes, Rob, we experienced it. So we're very fortunate and lucky that we have each other
Right.
to go through this and to be able to document it.
That's a great thing, because about half of my experiences were witnessed by other people, family,
Excellent.
friends, but the other half were just me. And so it's really, like you said, yeah, you go through a lot of, eyes rolling and heads rolling, a lot of times with the stories. But believe me, people, UFOs and ETs do exist, and you're going to find that out. I hope we find it out before everybody's time is up here. So where can they find the book? Is it on Amazon?
Yep. It's on Amazon. So just go to Amazon.com or whatever the address is for your country. I know in Canada, we go on Amazon.ca.
Yeah.
And it's listed there, the man who wanted to make contact, and you can put in any combination of those words, it'll come up. And there's the Kindle version, there's the paperback version. I believe Mark is working on the hard copy version. There's some people that like to always buy their books in hard copy.
Yeah.
Hardcover for their library. That one's going to be available as well. And then, Mark's already writing the other books. So it's an easy read. It's interesting, lots of pictures, and everything in it is 100% true.
And so what do you guys do with your off time? You're in Costa
Well,
Rica, so you're near the beaches there too, right?
yeah, exactly. But, I'm quite busy. For example, as you know, I'm teaching people to see blindfolded.
Okay.
Okay. And that's a whole nother thing. My hope is to eventually teach another one. a lady that I'm teaching, Claudia, she's just opened now to the point where she's losing her vision. And like she's got this tunnel vision where everything is like looking through this hole.
Mhm.
So if she looks to the side like this, she can't see you unless she looks straight at you like this. So that's for her, that's closing in and she's going to lose her vision. So she's now learned how to see blindfolded. It's an innate thing we all have. You just got to let it happen. We block it out because we're not aware of it. You know, people might be afraid of it or whatever, but we do have it. We're born with it. And she's at the point now where her real time seeing has opened. So she has, you call them windows, and there's one over on this side, and there's one here. This one is truly a window. It's like a little hole. And if she aims that at you, she can see everything in total color and total clarity. The other one right now is just a light. So if you held up a color there, she would sense the color. She would see the color. She just doesn't see images in that one.
Oh.
But that one will increase in size and it will open as a window also. She may have other ones open, so it can become like a Swiss cheese thing, Dave. It sounds funny, and they start to grow in size and they all run together. And now you've got your complete eyesight. You can see blindfolded. And in her case, when she goes blind, she'll just wear sunglasses and she'll be able to see everything anyway.
That's great.
Yeah. And it's hard to believe, but it's real. I can do it myself. In my case, because I'm a little bit older, it takes longer. I've been able to see images. I can see symbols, letters, numbers, colors, and you'll see tons of videos with me under, I think it's Rob Freeman, Learning to See Blindfolded or something, or a blindfolded practice. It's on YouTube. And I was teaching a blind fella also, and who saw when he was younger, and he can perceive symbols, numbers, letters, colors. His window has not opened up where he's seeing in real time. If he keeps working away at it, that will happen for him as well. There is a bus driver in India who has his license, and even though he's blind, he drives a bus.
Wow,
So
that's amazing. Amazing. Yeah. That's good work, Rob. I'd like to sign off by saying thank you, Rob Freeman, and Mark McNabb, wherever he's at. So thank you both for being on the show tonight. And everybody pick up the book, The Man Who Wanted to Make Contact. And it's with Rob Freeman and Mark McNabb. So I want to thank everybody for listening to Dave Emmons' Strange Reality. And tonight's been kind of a little strange because we've had some weird technical problems that we don't normally have. I had this similar glitches in my video, but we have never lost our guest off and on, periodically and then come back. So that's another one. That's a show. Yeah. Thank you so much, Rob and Mark.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dave, for having us on your show.
Good night to all. Bye.